Boom, there we go. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Decon versus the Dark. I am your host, Decon, and here I am with a very wonderful and mystical. Go ahead, sir.
Mystical, really? Yeah, it's me. I'm back again.
Well, that's because you look like a guru. You look you you look like somebody that the way that I'm able to get you on my show is I have to scale a mountain.
I mean, I'm having one built, so it's like it's only like 30 feet right now. So it's like, why bother? But like, I'm gonna say 60 feet. I'm gonna go up there, making people start hauling their ass up.
Please tell us your wisdom. It's like, yeah, don't listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, now get out of here.
Yeah, now get out of here, you crazy kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of hair tussling up on my mountain.
A lot of hair tussling.
Yeah, like give people pats on the heads and tell them get the fuck on.
Yeah, there you go, kid.
Yeah, it'll be my classic signature trademark is people leaving with fucked up hair because I think it's funny.
Yeah. Once they leave with like messed up hair, then people be like, "Oh, that person is wiser." And then
Yeah,
when people leave with their hair intact, they'd be like, "That person didn't get anything."
yeah, not touched by the guru, and then people like spray it with hairspray and keep that shit forever because they'd be weirdos about it.
But yeah, they'd be like, "Ruffle my hair, Mister Pink Flamingo." There you go, kid. Get out of here.
Oh yeah, I could go off the rails. So, yeah, man, I'm thankful to be back on your show because last time was really fun. So I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, and no fever this time, so I'll be a little bit more lively.
Yeah, and hopefully the light will stay on the whole time.
Oh yeah, me too. What? Anybody here? Light turned off. Damn it! What if it turns out I just didn't pay the bill?
Oh yeah, that's the untold secret of Decon versus the Dark. The very next day, you look in your mail and oh shit!
Oh, I didn't pay the bill. Wasn't paranormal. Oh man. So today I have a very dark topic. Well, I got a couple of topics, but mostly they're going to be dark.
Mm-hmm.
I want to revisit the topic of human trafficking.
Okay.
And then talk about slavery nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
because people think that slavery disappeared.
I don't know. That's the thing. I would like to because when you broached the topic of the show, I was like, okay, interesting. Because then I thought there's got to be, if Time Life is still doing their pointless surveys, there's got to be some data for this, right? Like, it seems like this is a metric that somebody out there is capturing, and I wonder if we could find that number hypothetically.
I think it was okay. So they say they're appealing to authority. So they say that there's more slaves now in the world than there's ever been in the history of the world.
Right. And but okay, so that's the thing. And obviously, since like the population is huge, we're gonna just by nature, like a sect of people are going to exploit another sect, and slavery will always exist in some form or another. So on that sliding spectrum, like what would you classify as slavery?
Well, okay, I'm gonna approach the dark topic of, for example, in places where where they dig out the cobalt for our cell phones.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, those people don't get paid. It's like you either dig or we'll kill your whole family. That's how it's run in those kind of operations.
Mm.
And it's just one of those things where it hasn't like, okay, so back in my day, so back in the days of the banana, when they were mining for bananas, Chiquita banana and all that kind of stuff, there's a famous picture where there's a guy who is just sitting there on a porch and it's black and white and you don't know what he's looking at. He's looking at
Oh, I know I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Keep going.
and
Sorry.
and and he's looking at, and you got to really look close to see what it was. What it was that he wasn't didn't make his quota for the day of what he was supposed to do. So what they did was they took his 1-year-old daughter and they cut off her hands. And what he was looking at was a picture of her severed hands. Just
Wasn't a picture they were sitting there on the porch with him?
yeah, well, I think it was just the hands, unless there's another picture.
No, no, yeah. I thought you said there was a picture of the hands, but yeah, he's sitting there on the porch with his child's hands.
Yeah, yep.
It unbelievable. And so yeah, so there's like, okay, so let's call that like the extreme to the one side, right? Like you're working under threat of violence, and I don't know how much further you can go down that spectrum. But I would also count, even though it's technically not because of some bullshit law or rule or regulation, any number of Chinese factory workers, like living in those manufactured towns where they have like, I don't know, 20 square feet and their life is in the factory and then in that concrete apartment that might as well be a prison. And sure, they make a wage, but
It's
how much of their life is theirs?
well, and that's another thing is that in those kind of companies, I mean, in China, they have, they get a wage, but what that wage covers is the equipment that they need to keep producing. Like it's not, all right, you can go outside and buy food. No, it's like we supply you with rice and protein, the very minimum that you need. You can't leave. Dude, they put nets outside the windows because people were killing themselves.
Right.
So now when you jump out, now you just land in a net like it's a fun game. You're just like, wee, and then you land and like, all right, get back in there, you make those Nikes.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like, what qualifies as slavery? Because like to everybody who has the power to do anything, this is acceptable because it's allowed to happen and continues to happen. I would say that is, if you're thrown into that situation, you are stuck there through, we'll call it political power versus like violent power.
Hmm. And that's the thing is what I think is hilarious is I call it the rose-colored glasses. I didn't invent the term, obviously. It's been out there since forever.
Right.
But we walk around like those celebrities that they go out there and they do like an acceptance speech and they say things like, "Wait, give me a minute. I'm going to use a battery pack here. Okay, we need to." Yeah, they're reading off their phone. Stop world slavery. Like, where does that phone come from? Like, where do you? You're such an idiot. Like, you're
so.
Oh yeah. Man, it's like, oh, we need to stop. Child slavery is illegal. It's like, yeah, who? They don't care. Like what? Because I don't know. Name a celebrity.
Leonardo DiCaprio is always going off about politics.
Yeah, he's dumb. But he's like, yeah, we need to stop slavery now. And he's reading it like, dude, where does your phone come from? Those
right, I know.
But they don't care. They don't care.
I kind of get it because, like, we'll just say that all celebrities that are out of touch, no matter what their opinions are, they're so far removed because of money and security guards and layers of buffers between them and reality. It's like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. But then at what point is it there was like, come on, you're not living under a rock. You're just a piece of garbage. Like, you don't care.
Well, here's the thing. Like, we point, like you and we point at the people who make the most noise that seem to not, like they're spinning their wheels, but you don't see any movement because they're hovering above the road. There's nothing happening. And then you go, well, fuck you. Because Leonardo DiCaprio could say, I love the environment, but then he'll hop into a private jet and blow, a couple of tons of jet fuel going back to Jamaica to blow through a bunch of other expendable shit and throw plastic into the ocean and fucking crazy shit. But then here's the question you got to ask yourself is what can you as the average person do to combat these things that everybody espouses to, fight themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying that, and I'm over here using a source of technology that uses cobalt. So
Right.
might as well put a picture of a 3-year-old mining it, because
That's
that's what's crazy. I'm a douchebag celebrity now.
well, no, that's the thing. We all have to make these concessions because life has shaped itself in such a way that you know the man, as long as there's a lower class, there's going to be something below that all the jobs will go to, because there'll always be a lowest bidder, and those will be the people who stuck in the factories. Those will be the what you can call them, free people if you want, but they're trapped.
Yeah, exactly. And then the system traps them. And you know what's crazy is that we are so soft as a society now that we think we have it hard. You know,
Well,
but
it's
comparison,
Mhm.
like, man, like we live pretty damn good.
Right,
We
but
we have overweight homeless people.
here's our problem though. Like, no, it's funny because it's a first world problem that is a legitimate problem. It's not something like, oh my god, my Mercedes has bird shit on it, like hashtag first world problems. Like our our phones, like you have a phone, I have a phone, we all have a phone. It's constantly spewing garbage at us. We try to curtail it, but the things that go viral are often fucking terrible things, right?
Yeah.
So no matter how cushy you have it physically, you're getting a stream of negative emotional garbage. So no matter how comfy your chair, delicious your food, or conditioned your air, as long as you're swallowing that shit like a hose full of sewage water, it's gonna feel like, yeah, it sucks here.
You know what's crazy is that, okay, so there was this book called Caesar, which
Mm.
was written by Julius Caesar on his war against the barbarians. And what was insane is that, so when they captured and then they conquered a small group of Germanic tribes, these Celts, they turned them into political prisoners. So
Mm.
they were now political prisoners. It's like, you guys have your own land, but you guys now serve Caesar. That's what you guys do. So whenever we ask you guys to go into war, you guys go into war. Whenever we ask you guys for, you know, 40% of your crops, you give us your crops. And then they rebelled. And then these people, they banded together, these Celtic tribes. It's like, we're gonna rise up against the empire and blah blah blah. And then they felt the full wrath of the Roman Empire. And then Caesar quotes it so beautifully. He said, then they went from being political prisoners to political slaves to becoming actual slaves. And as punishment, they were stripped of their land. They no longer had any freedom at all. It's like, now you guys turn our mills with chains around your neck. And
All right, like just imagine being back in the day. Like we can sit. I don't know if you're into true crime. I would say we're not great, like ratio wise, of innocent people going to jail versus guilty people going free. But like before we even had like checks and balances and cameras and audio tape and shit, imagine like going through any sort of justice system before any accountability.
yeah,
Like, holy shit.
like like because back, I mean, look at the way that the, like, for example, I think that it still functions this way too when you go to court in places like Great Britain. Like, there's no like real jury. It's just like five people that kind of look at you and then they're like, I think he's guilty, guilty. And that's
Yeah.
the way it was. And it seems like that's the way it is now. Like when I look at the setup and it's like, this person's on trial and it's the same five people that are sitting there. I think they even wear the same stupid wig.
Yeah, it's weird. Like all of our justice systems across the globe as humans, they're all fighting desperately to cover all the holes that people are poking. And that's why slavery still exists. That's why human trafficking still exists. Because no matter how well-oiled machine, right? No matter how well it's designed, it's going to require more people. And the more you add humans, the more you add the potential for corruption, because money will like make people destroy their entire lives or the possibility thereof to look the other way.
Yeah, dude. Have you ever seen that movie, A Few Good Men,
I have not.
with Jack? Well, there's a great scene where Tom Cruise is the lawyer and he's questioning Jack Nicholson, which is I believe he's a colonel
Mm.
in the United States Marine Corps, and there was an order given that could have been a violation of human rights, and that person ended up dying. So now you have Tom Cruise, basically telling him like, basically like, you need to tell me what happened. Jack Nicholson says the very famous phrase. He's like, you want the truth? And he says, I want the truth. Like, you can't handle the truth. And he tells them basically, he's like, you live this life where you're cushy and you're going to your parties and you're surrounded and you have a blanket of freedom because you're inside of a wall. And outside of a wall, there's men with guns. And you're not willing to take up that gun. You live inside this whole. So basically, he tells them like, yeah, you're enjoying your freedom because you need people like us. And it's just the world that we have now, like with the technology and all this kind of stuff. We need, if we want to maintain this lifestyle, there's always somebody underneath, somebody else that keeps those gears turning. And we like to pretend like it doesn't exist.
No, and on multiple levels too, because you have to think of it this way. Not only are your creature comforts supplied to you at the cost of somebody else, like anything pumped out of a factory, that person is probably not having a good life if they're in a third world country pumping out cheap shit for a Walmart or a Target or whatever. So we're all guilty of exploiting someone under us, class wise. And not only a single person, but like an entire economy of people under us that we decry as like horrible, but we want things to be affordable. And for that reason, we need some sect of humanity to be like, I'll take 3 cents a day because it's better than dying in a ditch, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what and what I'm saying is we're all guilty, but it just troubles me. Like when you get the college students, that they're just so soft. I mean, you know how they used to have the draft back then, like during Nam and World War II, and they used to have the fighting people that would show up, the fighting man. Dude, could you imagine if there was a draft now when they would think college students are so soft and wimpy because they live this cushy life, and then they stand out there and it's like, we want, equality, we want all these things, and it's like, dude, you're wearing Nikes. Those Nikes
Right.
are made by children.
That's the problem with us as a species, is like we can't, we want integrity so badly because we'll definitely reach out and tell other people where they're doing wrong, right? Like if we see someone go against anything we see that we find unacceptable, that sure, maybe we do ourselves and maybe a lot, but if we see other people do it, we go, God damn it, that person. You know,
What a horrible person. I'm gonna go tweet about it. Tick, 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 and then
right. And that's where these, but that, here's the thing. Even though all of the, like, if you look at the numbers and you get the general vibe of the internet and you get like uh, people who are trafficked, human trafficked for the sex trade, or people who are in any type of slavery, get a big hard number on it. I mean, it'll be horrifying because it'll be so many zeros, it'll make your head spin. But the silver lining is, despite all of that suffering, which is horrifying, like it's a sliver. And the best we can do is keep that sliver as tight as possible because we're never going to stomp it out. Like there will always be a door in which someone puts a police boot through to then be horrified at the contents of the room, because of some form of trafficking or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And that's just what it is. It just bothers me. See, and I don't even know if I'm what I'm trying to say. Like it bothers me that there's so much ignorance out there. Ignorance to the real darkness of this world. Or am I bothered that I know about it and maybe I wish that I didn't? You know, like,
Right.
are you envious of the poor idiot out there? And I'm picking on college students because they have no like real concept of the way the world works. I mean, they're indoctrinated by their professors, and their professors never really had an actual job. They were college students themselves, and then they go and then they get a job in the college, and they're telling people what life is like. And it's like, dude, you haven't walked a block away from this campus. Like, what are you talking about? But then I'm like, am I envious that these people they don't know the way the world works? Maybe I want to. What was that? The Matrix? Maybe I want to take the blue pill now, like that one guy did.
I don't know. I think it might be partial. I don't think it's. I think a lot of people say that. I used to say that a lot too, where I go, I wish I didn't know all this shit, but it's impossible. Like, we're inundated with it all the time. I think it's just a matter of other people's ignorance frustrates us, because you'd say, it's kind of victim blaming, and it's sometimes justified if someone's pulling out their victim card. But think of it in broad terms like this. There are people vulnerable in society. They're going to get picked off by the predators among us. Yeah. So, like, whose responsibility is what? Like, there are going to be aberrations in society. They're going to pick people off and abduct them or murder them or whatever. And we can spread as much awareness as possible, but there's always going to be an unattentive this, that, or the other that gets snatched, grabbed, or yanked, or yoked out, or stabbed, or whatever. So this ecosystem is always going to exist. I wish there was more onus on, like, as tough as it would be. Let me just play devil's advocate for a second, because in every violent crime case that makes it to any sort of media, the murderer is a larger than life villain who led a double life and had bat wings and devil horns and fangs and shit, and they skulked at night, while their victims are always cherubic angels who just came out of their latest choir practice, and they were walking to the soup kitchen, of which they volunteer 96 hours of their week to. But, like, the thing is, like, we've all met someone in our life growing up through school. You probably met a dozen of them where there was a light on behind the eyes, but no one really home. Those are the people who get yanked. And they'll always be there. Like, there'll always be someone unattentive. There'll always be someone not checking their six. There'll always be someone not alert and looking around and checking their surroundings. And those are the gazelles that just, boop, they get snapped up by the alligators.
Yeah, and no matter how much you're like, hey, man, you might want to pay attention. They're like, oh, leave me alone with your negativity, or I want to go, and then they because they put on the blinders. And that's the part that I don't envy. What's crazy is we were talking about human trafficking a second ago, and I was reading this book. So, are you familiar with wrestling at all? Like the old time wrestlers, like.
I was active interested in wrestling like during late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, well, this was earlier than that. This was like Hacksaw Jim Duggan and all that kind of stuff, like 80s. So there was this woman. She was probably around the fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. They were like big in the 90s in the Attitude Era because they were like these old ladies, and they were like, you remember? And they would do like the DX and all that kind of stuff. So
okay, yeah.
So they were seen as these heroes, because these were the women that were pushed down and they rose up. Well, anyways, there was this book that they were. So the fabulous Moolah and Mae Young, they were basically sold to wrestlers. Like when they were young and they were starting off in the business, they were like passed on, and they were being pimped out by their manager. So when they actually became managers themselves, they were pimping out their younger wrestling girls that would come to their schools, and and they tell these horror stories about how they would, drop the girls off at this wrestling academy, and it's like, all right, there you go. How much is it? $300. Here you go, and then do whatever you want with these girls. And then, even though they themselves were victims, dude, they were victimizing so many people.
Right, because it's a learned pattern. What else do they know, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was just thinking about that, and I was like, man, these people know what it's like to be but then that's the definition of the bottom bitch that we talked about the first episode when me and you were together. Like, the bottom bitch, like, this is a girl that she's considered a senior member of the group, even though she's probably like 29, and she was passed around and she was victimized, and now her job is to victimize younger people. And I'm like, man, how can you go through all that suffering and become a victim and then turn around and do it to somebody else, knowing?
That's the thing. Psychology offers us a plethora of answers, and they're probably all correct. It's like the hurt want to hurt to like regain some of that power. That's normalcy. Like, when you are exposed to something repeatedly, it's no longer an aberration in your life. Like, that's you and that's your life. So that's normal. So you go, okay, well, this is what's expected of me. Keep marching, And, some people, you can say, well, they shut off emotionally and they're just blah, blah, blah. However you want to put it, it keeps happening because victims are what generate predators by and large.
What was that term? Hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. But man, it's just, when you really look into that topic, dude, it's just so depressing, because how many of these monsters were victimized by monsters themselves, and it becomes like a never ending conveyor belt of just victims and predators.
Okay, so but think about this, because you can in some way, shape, or fashion, you can give latitude to someone. Like, if the madam that begats a madam that begats a madam, like, that ball started rolling before the first lady can even remember. And so you could say, well, doomed from the start. There's a section of the public that's refreshing the old stock, like, because you have to think somebody is coming into this trade new, and those are either two types of people. You got a demographic of people being abducted for the product line, or the new salesman, essentially. And so, because it can't be a closed system, you've got to keep refreshing it. And so, like, the new victims, obviously they're going to be horrified, but think about that person who didn't grow up in that, but was traumatized in some other way to show up in this industry, so to speak.
Yeah. And they gotta show them the ropes. Isn't that what?
Right. Because, like, it's everybody's first day at something somewhere. And that's fucked, because, like, it's the whole, one of my pet peeves that people still like to do is like fun party or cocktail conversation is like the nature versus nurture.
Oh, yeah.
That is like asking, is an Oreo a cookie or frosting? Right?
That's a good way to put it.
Like, hello, like, they coexist. You cannot have one without the other. A chocolate chip cookie is batter and chocolate chips. Thus, you have the thing. So people trying to find what sways the heaviest, it's going to be a case by case basis. And that's why you'll never catch anybody prematurely unless they're giving off like crazy red warning signs and flags, and they're perhaps even in the act of committing something before you stop them.
Yeah, and oh, man, I hate to go here because it's so, I'm so sick of the stuff. But again, it just reminds me of the today on To Catch a Predator. And you just get like that doctor. You remember the doctor who?
Yeah, Maurice Wolowitz.
Yeah, who was a cancer research guy, and he takes his glasses and he smashes them.
Mhm.
He's like, I wasn't doing anything. And it's like, dude, that is so crazy. That guy. How many people took their sick kids to this guy, not knowing?
Right, and here's the thing. That's the problem we have, right? Is the criminals will always have the upper hand, no matter how grand a system that anyone will ever think up. Because here's the thing. Criminals get to stay inside their own mind and plan a crime or have criminal intent, while we on the outside of their head have to wait until something transpires or there's evidence something is going to transpire, like conspiracy to commit, etc. So we'll always be at the receiving end of something, because you can't be like, aha, you were thinking about it. I mean, given various circumstances, obviously, if you're like stockpiling guns or like a bunch of materials you intend to do harm with, or you're writing something down or talking to someone on Facebook and then they want to get in front of that, then yeah, by all means. But by and large, nobody's doing that, because like you're going to do a smash and grab or you're going to kill someone and you're not going to talk about it on Facebook.
Yeah, and you know, and a lot of the stuff was, there was this book that was, man, what is it called? But it was basically on what causes people to commit these atrocities or these atrocious acts. And I swear, like 99.9% of it, it was like, well, this person, had just a bad life. But then when you look at this doctor, I mean, this guy, not only was he rich, but he had like a healthy upbringing.
Right.
And it's like, it's crazy, because people make the argument of, well, maybe he was up, at a certain time of the night, and he wasn't getting any action, and he just had these urges, and then somebody decided to pay attention to him, and he's like, oh man, but like, you've got to be really sick for you to find out this person was a kid, and you continue,
Right.
like, you're a doctor.
You
Hide
can't. Oof, I don't even know how to get into this, but like, now that the internet has basically worked its way into every facet of our lives, like it never leaves our pocket, I shudder to think, because like back when this material or like illicit material was difficult to get a hold of, right? You had to find hard copies because the internet didn't exist and could be delivered to you via your phone through the dark web or whatever the fuck.
Oh, wait, but before I clarify, I gotta clarify something. I didn't
Sure.
mean hire somebody like hire a prostitute. I meant hire a therapist. For those of you that are gonna be like, I thought we were speaking out against, victimizing people. Like, no, I was talking about hire some help, get some damn help.
Oh,
If you have
yeah,
these thoughts in
obviously.
your head, jeez.
Here's the thing. You want to get into like whether prostitution should be legal or not. They've got advocates for that or whatever, but I forget where I was going. Crap.
Dark web, and before the internet, we had to go through.
So just think like when it took effort, right? When you had to like adopt a secret language and meet IRL or put on message boards that like had actual paper, that barrier to entry probably kept a lot of perverts or dangerous people who were on the fence away. But the internet sort of removed that barrier and opened up the lawn to everybody. Because you're no longer having to go out in a public space and risk or meet a person or because now it's all screen names and to your pocket, potentially.
Yeah, no more secret handshake or like, do a quick tap dance like in Germany. When you're in Germany and you want to gather the attention of a prostitute and you want to be discreet, the number one thing they say is when you stand in public, just kind of like play with your hands and just do something like that. And then you see these women begin to surround you. And if you don't know what's going on, you're like, what is it? They probably think he's a famous musician. No, but I mean, these are the type of things. Like, people used to travel to Thailand, and they knew a certain restaurant. And in this restaurant, if you gave them a couple key words, they're like, oh, get to the back, and
for sure.
That was racist. I don't care.
And, those pockets still exist IRL. So like doing it, like committing acts is still probably as hard to do, although easier to orchestrate now that it's electronic, And so it just sort of opened the door to a lot of low energy perverts and or deviants who wouldn't take it that step beyond to like whatever they're into, do that thing in real life, but they'll collect a bunch of material on it and keep it on their computer. So they're like the scummiest of criminals. Like the criminals go out and commit crimes and they create the paraphernalia, right? Whether it be CP or gore or snuff or whatever the horrible thing may be. It serves a subclass. It serves a subclass of degenerate that won't ever commit a crime, but will definitely pay to see that shit.
You know, the Subway guy. You remember that guy from Subway?
Jared, yeah.
Like at first, when he was first arrested, they thought he was just looking at CP, but then they started finding the paper trails. They started finding he was traveling to third world countries, like on, to commit these crimes, and man, and what's so shitty is that the fact that it was the guy that was going to schools and telling little kids, if you only eat healthy, and it turns out he was recruiting middle schoolers.
Right. And here's the thing, like as an average citizen, I sometimes get the call in my gut to do something for my fellow man, like and help. But I always then do a gut check and be like, would this be seen as sketchy? And I always teeter off on the side of safety and doing jack shit, like helping out at a Boys and Girls Club or like being a big brother, getting another exchange student or whatever. And I just go, God damn, like
adopt a kid and
with all this stuff in the news and shit, like I would just hate to be looked at sideways for the rest of my life. Simply because it's always in the news and it's always people who are like, oh, we love this dude. Like Jared was seen as a boring, lovable goofus, and he was a fucking nightmare.
His tennis shoes were stupid. Look at those college pictures.
Yeah.
What?
He was a bland ass white bread dude carrying around a huge pair of pants, and everybody lapped it up like fucking ice cream.
And now looking back, I'm kind of like, dude, you should have stayed fat. That way the kids could run away from you.
Jesus, that's the thing. And it's so weird because like money is the quickest way to get into somebody's perversion, because as soon as someone gets rich, they'll spiral out if they are a weirdo, because all of their money goes into their weird thing. So like from like a low Z level celebrity, like maybe he's a lolcow, EDP 445.
I don't know. You're gonna have to elaborate.
So he was a like a YouTube personality who got catfished by the predator poachers looking for a 13-year-old, and he got memed the fuck out of because he said he was showing up for cupcakes.
That sounds so dark. Like
but that's the thing, that he didn't have any power, but he was still comfortable. And by the time the predator poachers caught him, it was like the 8th time. He'd been catfished so many fucking times and documented on YouTube, but it didn't fucking matter. His tiny amount of YouTube clout allowed him to victimize people. And so it doesn't matter the amount of power. If someone's going to get, they're going to spin out soon.
So is the predator poachers, are these like there was a series that was going on for a long time where there was this guy who would text people and he would show up in public and he's like, hey, what are you looking for? And he was like, is that would okay. Those videos bothered me because that guy had like, remember how we talked earlier about people that have no sense of awareness or no sense of like danger? So there was a video where this guy was obviously pissed, and he was dangerous. This guy was like a felon, and this guy's like walking away from him, and this guy's following him, and he's struggling to follow him because the guy had like weight issues. He's like, go behind him, and he's stop. So what? And then this guy is like leading him through a construction site, and then he's like, stop, you can't get away. And it's like, dude, you're by yourself.
Gee, yeah, like you can be lured into your murder.
Yeah, and then that's what I was thinking. I was like, this guy's gonna turn around and he's gonna knock you out, and then possibly do to you what he wanted to do to this kid.
That's the thing.
stop following him. What are you
Yeah.
doing? He's like walking, and then he goes to like this creepy, like where they're building something, and there's like these big beams, and he's like, stop, say something. And this guy's just walking. I'm like, he's gonna turn around any minute now. But then luckily the guy ran out of breath and then just turned around. He's like, let's just get out of here. That was it. And I'm like, dude, you're so lucky. He could have been leading you to an abandoned place and he could have murdered you.
Right.
No sense of awareness.
Play with fire like every day, like whether you're. I think the dude's first name is Chet. I don't know much about him or his channel. I just know by reputation and reference. But like the footage that he has is fucking gnarly. Like he shows up with a clipboard, like classic Chris Hansen. Dude's got a phone 4K camera or whatever, and he's videotaping the whole thing. And if there were anybody else, like, yeah, he could have gotten violent. But on top of that, like, since this guy's just a sloppy dude with a hoodie and a matted beard with food in it, like everybody's like, oh, dude, what the hell? Why isn't this dude in jail now? And it's because he was majorly entrapped. These dudes don't know what the fuck they're doing, and so they're not helping a fucking thing. Like when police catfish someone, they do it in a way that can get them off the streets. Catfishing someone for your fucking YouTube channel does nothing except possibly ruin their YouTube career, but leaves them out as a predator at large because you used entrapment and you're a fucking idiot about it.
Yeah, and what it does is that it educates this predator now. Like now he's aware. He's like, okay, this is what, because yeah, these people made the advances to these people like, hey, what's up? You want to have a good time? I'm 13 years old and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not how it works. They're supposed to come to you.
Right.
You can't just be pushing and then, blowing up their phone and then like, meet me here at Walmart, or something. And then it's like, dude, you're the one that was pushing.
And that's why these things are so frustrating to me, is like they were clearly entrapped, but when you're someone showing up to meet a kid, you don't know what entrapment is at that point because you're flooded with stress hormones. Because instead of a child, it's a dude, a heavy set dude and his cameraman, possibly with a big light. And so, is basically just like a public form of torture because they'll make, if you watch the highlight clips or whatever, they'll make people call their loved ones, their family members, tell them what they're doing and shit. And that, to me, that's cruel and unusual. Like if we want to put them through a meat grinder, let the justice system do their thing. Like this is the public stockade.
Yeah, that's how you create a whirlpool where these people now have a case. It's like, oh, this goes around a lot. Now this poor person, he's emotionally distressed now. He's suffering through PTSD because of what you put. And then it gives these people a type of defense. And
that it can supercharge the predator poachers or whoever they want to call themselves. Because if they start getting harsh criticism, they're going to have their hardcore fans go like, no, you're doing the right thing. So they may amp it up and get violent. You don't know. Like,
yeah, well,
these police people.
Yeah, well, this guy, I don't know if he would ever get by. I don't think he has a stamina. Like it was always like hard. I was always watching this guy like try to chase after somebody on foot, and I'm like, this guy's gonna pass out. Like he's gonna fall down.
Yeah, not everybody can be like a cop's cameraman.
Man, and then what's insane is that these criminals, because there's really no case, like they're not going to prison like, and he was put in prison for 30 years. Oh, they go along, and then now they know what to look for. Now they're like, oh, okay, now when I'm scouting for children, now I know that if they approach blah blah blah, I could be in trouble. This is gonna be a cop, or this is gonna, you're giving them now tools to be more cautious.
Well, okay, here's a concept that I'm going to lay on you that's kind of cool, but it's like a gross kind of cool. Because since the internet and real life are so intermeshed with people's minds now that they're one and the same, trolls from online are active IRL and taking pictures of like high value targets, let's call it, to these communities to make sure that people stay aware of where these people are. Like everybody on TCAP, they're being documented. Everybody from the ladder, Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, or all those later investigations, they will have a following forever now. And that's sort of the bright side of the internet, because trolls have a good side, even though it's a slimy, disgusting thing they usually use against normal people.
Yeah, and with these trolls, I mean, like, man, and see, and here we go again. But like Lauren Armstrong, people look up where he works, and then they like call or leave messages, and it's like, oh, are you aware? Or I, he was working for like I don't know if he still is, but like for a pallet company, and people were saying like, yeah, I got some pallets from you guys, and there was some white stuff, and I think it was due to Lauren Armstrong, and
Oh,
it's funny, but it's like, oh man, like how much of that? It's funny because he's a predator, but it's also like these people that do that, they have like a little bit of a predatory nature to them. They're getting some kind of satisfaction from
right. That's the concept of, because they're like the TCAP alum and others are basically professional, butt of the joke. Like they can milk their audience, but it's mostly just receiving abuse. And that's how most, I shouldn't say most, that's how all the trolls sort of assuage their problems in real life. Like if you're frustrated, kicking down is your pretty much only option, because if you kick up, there'll be reprisal. So you find
yeah,
someone online, like, you find a lolcow, or you find a TCAP person or whatever, and you take your hostility out on them, and you wash your conscience clean, saying, well, they deserve it. They deserve it. But Jesus Christ, they've been paying for it 24/7 since the offense from literally everyone all the fucking time. And now you're jumping in to assuage like your hurt because this person deserves it, whether they're Lauren Armstrong or Cyraxx or King Cobra JFS, doesn't matter who.
see, that Cyraxx guy, that is, man, I
Ins-
don't understand. I don't understand what he is. I look at pictures of him like, what are you?
He's just the product of a poor genetic hand played by the universe on top of an inadequate family and support structure anywhere within reach. And as a byproduct of all of these things coming together and congealing in a goo somewhere in Akron, Ohio, he sprouted like a fungus. And that's the thing. Otherwise, he would go unnoticed. But we live in an internet age, so every computer has a camera built in, and every buddy has the potential to become a lolcow, and it happened. Lightning struck.
Yeah, and even I had that dilemma. Like I've been thinking a lot about, people. Is it lolcow or is it lolcow? Like I don't understand the.
It's up to you. You're just milking the person for laughs. So if you want to call it lol or lol, it doesn't matter. It's a playful term for a very abusive situation.
Yeah, I don't like it, to be honest with you. Like there's so many channels out there just that build their communities around, and I'm gonna call it what it. If this person is a terrible person, if this person, like Cyraxx, I guess he lives with his grandmother and he's
Yeah.
mean to her.
Mhm.
And I think it was the guy, Base Shaman, that was talking about like, bro, why you so mean? I think that's how he talks. Bro, why you so mean to your grandma? Just she doesn't deserve it. Just leave her alone. And it's like, what? That's the grandmother's fault. Like, why are you putting up with this? I don't feel bad for his grandmother at all. Like, I think it's her fault. But again, I don't care how horrible of a person he is. I don't think that I think that the reason why people say, well, he's a terrible person or he's a predator, he's this and that, it's just you trying to justify your inner monster trying to
Yeah,
victimize.
1,000%.
You know.
Here's my secret hope when I'm watching this stuff is like, well, for different flavors, because like,
Stop, Cyraxx.
say what?
I said, stop, Cyraxx. Leave your
Oh,
grandma alone.
but like, so here are the two extremes, I think. Because like, are you familiar with King Cobra JFS?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so he is very low energy. He's like huffing duster. He's doing kratom. He's drinking himself to death. And so he's very low energy, and his troll schemes are pretty low energy. Like he gets a bunch of DoorDash shit and or whatever. Like it's not, he's never yelling. He's not a high energy lolcow. He's a low, slow, boil, boring lolcow. Whereas Cyraxx is like a volcano. And so I secretly watch Cyraxx because he gets it from so many people. I'm secretly wishing for some sort of fall from one of the big trolls involved. Just to for not that it would prove any lessons, but I could at least it would vindicate myself that like, yeah, the hurt do cause hurt. And so if one of these big characters, because like Chris Chan had a whole plethora, a bevy of characters that circled in that universe from Alec Benson Leary to the Idea Guys and beyond.
Yeah, with Chris Chan, I looked a little bit. I couldn't stay with it because I watched it from there was like a documentary out there on him that somebody had
Huge.
made, and I had no idea what it was. Honestly, this is how dumb I am. When you said low energy earlier, like a minute ago, I thought you were talking about me because I think I'm very low energy. But anyways, so I thought Chris Chan was somebody that was like a fan of Jackie Chan, and I thought it was gonna be like, do you remember the Star Wars kid? That kid that had the
Oh
broomstick or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
turning it around. He was like,
That's
I thought it
hilarious.
was. That's what I thought it was. I'm like, Chris Chan. What's Chris? Well, I'm looking. I thought it was gonna be like, and he tried to jump up a wall or something, and he tried to. That's what I thought it was. That's how dumb I am. So I'm listening to it, and then I realized that it was an autistic person, and and then as you go on, like his dad. In what did his dad invent? His dad invented Kleenex, wasn't it? His dad
He's
invented the
done a
Kleenex.
whole bunch of stuff. Like that's the thing is like the lore of Chris Chan is so wide and deep. I fell out of it too. Like I was watching the Geno Samuel documentary up until like the 40 something episode. Because by the time it got super toxic and like they were starting to, they meaning the trolls, were starting to mess with Chris's reality, I was checked out because that felt super like beyond toxic. Like all the mean shit was whatever. The internet's gonna internet. But by the time they, because there's theories that his transition, it wasn't his own idea route,
Yeah,
like it was the Idea Guys or whatever. And so as soon as he had a shift from being like a quirky lolcow to like actively being gaslit, I was like, no, can't do it. Like, and I can't stop it, so I can't watch it.
I made it to episode 5. That's how far I was. By the time that I just listening to like his struggle, and and he had a great time in high school because he was a kid with autism and people felt bad for him, and his dad made that workshop for him when
Uh,
he was little. It was the workshop of dreams, and then it just got so like toxic, and his mom was hoarding, and the shop was never used. Like that broke my heart. I'm like,
the
man.
if you ever make it back, stick it out for at least the early sonichu arcs because it's so I feel like that's when it's at its most wholesome, where it's like the trolls haven't really made any big changes, and Sonichu is just a stand-in for Chris. So anytime he has an encounter with someone in public that's socially awkward, or he gets tackled by a security guard at a Target, it makes it into the comics, but in a way that he becomes the victor. And I
Yeah, and that's one thing that I analyzed. I was watching that, and I think I made it to. Okay, he had just made Sonichu, and he didn't. I think he didn't have the courage or something to talk to somebody. But in the comic book, like he talked to this girl, and she became his girlfriend. And I was like, okay, so what he's doing is there was a movie with Steve Carell where he had like these little figures, and I forget what that was called. but he had like these little figures, and then he was like in the fantasy, and like everything that he wasn't or couldn't be, he would live it through the figures, you
Right.
know. And it's a mental, and it was, this guy had PTSD from Nam. I haven't
Mhm.
laughed that hard since Nam. So and so he had this kind of PTSD, and because he didn't have the courage to actually live his life, he would live it through these fantasy action figures and all that kind of stuff. And then Chris Chan was like doing the same thing, like with this comic book. The I almost called it the Pikachu. What is it? The
Not you.
Sonichu. So he was like, and then I talked to the girl, and she became my girlfriend, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, this poor guy. But then, his situation, he encountered one of the trolls, and the trolls was telling him to do something, and he actually did it, or like started to do it, and they told him that somebody was kidnapped. And then I was like, I
Yeah,
can't believe,
that's
I
the
can't believe.
he is made to do and believe so many different and sickening things. But like, I don't know. I'm a lover of bad media. If it's a bad movie or a bad book, I usually love it because earnest attempts at artistic endeavors that fall flat are most of the time fucking hilarious. And Chris Chan's comic is inept and 100% ripped off. Like it's basically just lifted from Family Guy, full scenes, wholesale, like Cleveland Show, anything he's ever seen, like from classic TV to modern cartoons and South Park and shit, makes it into his comic. And on top of that, the writing is insanely terrible. So it's hilarious in a couple of different ways because it's a fucking travesty.
So he ended up going to prison. I didn't look that much into it. So he went to prison. I don't know for what.
Okay. As far as I know, he's out. She, he, they, however you want to refer to them. I don't mean to be offensive, but they are out of prison and they went there for inappropriate actions with their dementia riddled mother.
Oh, she had dementia. I
Yeah,
thought
like
you just report her.
no, she after Bob died, like her mental health and everything went downhill because like they're shut-ins or they were, and once Bob was gone, like they went from 3 to 2, and he was the smart, level-headed one. So with him
Yeah.
gone, it's now Barb and Chris, and who's the anchor to reality in that situation?
Okay. Yeah. I didn't I didn't make it to where his father died. I just remember his father was like always very concerned about him, and was always standing up for him, or taking it like, okay, like trying to bring him to reality in like the most gentle way, and it's like, man. And yeah, I couldn't imagine, once that individual is gone from that home, and then you have, you know a delusional person. And then the mom, I had no idea she had dementia. I thought she was just, you know hoarding things.
Yeah,
And
well,
but then
she was always a hoarder. The dementia is fairly recent and unconfirmed. I don't know. I can't allegedly because I don't have a doctor to, but it's widely speculated.
Dr.
And
Wallen, oh no, he's dead.
yeah, Maurice. Oh damn, we just missed him. But I think that's one of the things about Chris Chan too, that even people who aren't familiar with the lore still like feel or hear the name and there's something relatable because he's done and been documented, and then she has done and been documented doing so many things. We can all see ourselves in certain slices of his life, not acting that way, obviously. But that's the thing. It's like at the end of the day, he's a human and we still relate to him or her no matter what point in the timeline you want to point to that person. They're still relatable, even if they seem disconnected. Because, like, when you read his writing when he was emailing people back and forth, it's weird. It's a little stilted, but it doesn't come across as like disorganized thought or scattered thinking. There's no delusions. It's just an earnest and flowery type of speaking, but this spoken language is like like a real life Porky Pig.
Yeah, man, that was so sad. Like, yeah, I'll probably go back and just kind of look into it now that you're man, but that was just so depressing to me. Like, man, I
Yeah.
can't,
You have
you
to
know.
sort
And people were victimized, and I mean, in the end, we're running short on time here, but man, these people that like with the lolcows and lolcows. See, I'm so dumb.
you milk.
With these people, you're like victimizing them, and you yourself have become a predator. And then when your content is just based off of just that, you got to really evaluate your life and be like, okay, what are we doing?
Right.
Like,
And
how does this bring us joy? Well, he's a piece of garbage. Like, it doesn't, like, in the end, it doesn't matter. Like, come on.
I would say you could put this on the same color palette and spectrum as like what we were talking about earlier, slavery. Like, no matter how you're forced into living the life you don't want to live, here we are. Like, whether you're a lolcow and you're like having a tap dance for all your trolls to defend your honor or whatever, or you're at the end of a machete, you're not your own person. You're everybody else's.
And yeah, this is just dark, dude. I should just become a lolcow.
Sometimes the money's good. King Cobra makes a decent living. So,
Well, that's it.
how much is your dignity worth?
But yeah, exactly. Anyways, man, this was such a great conversation, dude. You have to come back and
Yeah, I appreciate it. Once again, man, it's always a blast.
yeah, dude. You're so much better at this than me. Well, did you see? My creepy boarded up window now has a target and a graphic up there.
Yeah, I like that. It's coming together as a piece. I think maybe a few more accents, and it'll be complete.
Yeah, maybe, but then it's gonna be too much, and people are like that's distracting. I'm like, oh
No,
man.
like small more pieces, like maybe something hanging to accent the helmet and something over your left shoulder to sort of draw the eye down a little bit from the bullseye.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
Because when your head covers it, you can have something there, and then it's a nice game to play.
Yeah, we should do that. Well, anyways, guys, this was fun. It's been real. It's been fun. Been real fun. And seriously, check out his channel, the Pink Flamingo. I don't know what that means.
FFOP radio is just my spirit animal.
Oh, okay. My spirit animal is that guy that was too small for the chair on To Catch a Predator.
Westerbeck?
Yeah, he's my spirit animal.
He just floats over your shoulder, and his bottom half is just a cloud, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know, I got a bird on my head."
I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, guys, remember to always look both ways. Especially that's the wrong podcast. That's my true crime podcast. Anyways, this was fun, guys. You guys have a great night, dude. You're awesome. I enjoy having you on here, and you know what, man? Like, I think that we can flow really well. So I think that's the great thing about our conversations is that you almost make me seem intelligent.
That the hardest part about all this, like, quick aside, not to belabor the point, the hardest part about all this is finding someone who it doesn't like go, oh yeah, like don't fucking sweat it and everything just works.
Yeah, just talk. You're having a conversation with a friend. Stop
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember my outro. Here it is.
Let's do it.
Now I'm self-conscious now. Okay. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. Yeah, that was pretty good. Anyways, good night, guys.
Radical, man. I'll catch you later.
Oh, I'm so dumb. I should become a lolcow.